what do I need to be thinking as a listener to make me press my thumb down on the touchscreen.
Okay. Put me on the spot. One sentence. Okay.
Right.
I mean, I've got a few sentences on the podcast description, but I think
each guest is different, of course.
Yeah.
I know that. But like, hey, you should check out my podcast if you're into blank.
If you're into I would just say improving your health. And then that's not like that could be financial sovereignty.
Mm-hmm. That could be your financial health. It could be your physical health.
Relationships.
Mental health.
Yes.
Relationship. Yes.
So,
relationship with yourself.
Yeah. Everything. If you had to put it in one sentence. And so I'm trying to figure out how to potentially, like, I was talking to my buddy Danny the other day, and other people that are trying to maybe build a product around their social platform, because at the end of the day, I think podcasts are tough until you become like a Lex Friedman or Andrew Huberman or a Joe Rogan or whatever, which is like, those are the extremes, right?
And they're extremely intimate at the same time. Like, the upside to podcasts is you have somebody in your ear for an hour.
So many millions of people know who you are.
Right.
Like, they build a relationship with you that you don't.
Which is pretty crazy. You don't get that in email newsletters. You don't get that at, even radio talk shows. You don't get that because, it's like, it's not as intimate as, because podcasts are basically like talk radio on demand. Right? Like, by subject that you are truly interested in. But for me, like, I've been listening to Rogan for fucking forever.
Yeah.
And can I swear on here?
Yeah.
Okay. Forever.
Yeah.
But it sounds crazy. And I'm not a fanboy. I don't listen to every Rogan episode. I'm not big into the MMA episodes and stuff like that. But if he were in the room right now, I feel like I could talk to him like, dude, I know you really well. You've been in my ear for hundreds or thousands of hours.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know his family or anything, but we could like chat.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like the intimacy you build up, and you target an audience, well, selling either a product or, in my mind, after listening to some of your previous episodes, it's like, hey, you should check out my podcast if you're into health, and I would say like,
could be lifestyle. I don't know. Like, I'm still building that, building that one sentence niche, but
I would say like, if you're into like health in the digital age, well-rounded personal health in the digital age. I think that's how you.
Yeah. Thank you.
I think that's not a bad way to put it.
Yeah. And like years ago when I was before I did the podcast, and even before I was working for Unchained, I created like a brand, and I was trying to build like potentially a blog, and it was called The Digital Nomad. And it was around that. It was around being in the digital age and taking care of your health in different aspects. And then I kind of dropped that off because I went down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, COVID happened, and all this other stuff. And so it's honestly, I sometimes, like, as of now in the present moment, I've been faced with challenges and different questions, and it's like at certain points it's like irritable, but at the same time I remind myself that this is like, you're going to look back on this, and this is the fun part.
Yeah.
This is the best part.
It's type 2 fun.
Yeah.
Right? Like, type 1 fun is like, do you want to go to a concert tonight? It's going to be fun. It's fun in the moment. Type 2 fun is fun that's only fun when you look back on it. So like, I've been moving this weekend to a new apartment. It's beautiful. It's like my girlfriend and I's dream apartment. We're moving in together. Nice. It's so much fun.
Congrats.
The views, thank you. The views are incredible. Like, it's a beautiful apartment complex, but moving has sucked. Moving is like, building, if I see another Allen wrench, I'm going to go crazy. But this whole time, her and I both took off work. We're moving in together. These are like memories that are going to be, if her and I are for the long haul, we're going to look back on this and be like, that was fun.
Yeah.
But it's type 2 fun. It's not fun. It wasn't fun on Thursday.
Yeah.
But 5 years from now, we could look back on it and be like, damn, that was really fun.
Yeah, it's a cute moment. So you're moving stuff in and you're trying to figure out where to put things. And
but for you, building this podcast, adjusting the camera, making sure the door's unlocked, like, that stuff is like, spending $200 per episode. It's like, it's not fun in the moment, but it's cheesy. It's the whole, like, it's not the destination, it's the journey. Yeah. It's literally that. You're going to look back on it and be like, damn, that was super fun because I actually took the leap and I explored it. So many people don't. So many people
Yeah.
are like, hey, I want to start something, whether it's a podcast, newsletter, learning to code, you know, woodworking, whatever. I want to be outside more. I want to but they don't get up off the couch and do it. So I want to secure my wealth with my own keys. It's kind of what we do every single day. People just don't do it because they don't take the leap. So you're taking the leap. You're in the Type 2 fund right now. And I'm excited for you to look back on it. It's going to be pretty sweet.
Yeah, I'm excited as well, man. It's been a fun journey. And this will be, I think, episode 35. And I've had, obviously, Sasha. I've had Jose. I've had the UTXO Slayer. I've had
Thompson, man.
Yeah, I've had Naomi, Nozomi is her last name. I'm totally blanking on her name. I'm so sorry. She does she has like a psychological media, and it's Nozomi Hayase, I believe, is her name, and she's got like a really cool combination of she supports whistleblowers and like accountability with our government, and proponent of Bitcoin and independent journalism. And so
Nice.
I did a episode with her and Texas Slim. And so and then over the course of, I would say from like episode 7 to, almost now, with the exception of Sasha, it's been all non-Bitcoin stuff.
Yeah, which is cool.
Yeah.
Well, and also for the well-rounded health in the digital age, Bitcoin is a sliver of that. It's your financial health. If you don't understand Bitcoin and its implications and like how you should be saving your money in Bitcoin, then you're not going to have some good financial health in the 2020s. I can guarantee you that. So, but it fits into the large. It's like it's a small string of notes in the larger song that is your podcast, which I think is great. But it doesn't have to be the core focus of it, which is really, really nice.
Yeah, so it's been centered around physical strength training, whether it's like spirituality, questions around spiritual exploration, and different modalities between like meditation and contrast. So temperature contrast therapy, like ice baths and sauna and breath work and all this stuff. That's really helped me personally become a stronger human being, because I felt as I was transitioning into Austin and beginning this journey with Unchained, it was just this knowing within me that was like, okay, you need to build your character into a stronger, more optimal manner. And I didn't know exactly how to do that, but it started with fitness for me, at least. And then it comes down to, maybe something higher than yourself. I actually posted something last night. It was a conversation between Lex Friedman and Andrew Huberman. It was their most recent podcast together. And as many people know, Huberman he's a scientist, and he's, I think, a neuroscientist or a biologist, but he focuses on, the reason why he's so popular is because he focuses on breaking down from a rational scientific perspective how to optimize yourself from a human health perspective. And so he's very rational, he's very thorough, he's very meticulous. And this I don't know how long it was. I think it was like maybe 10 to 15 minutes of him going back and forth with Lex. It was him just introducing how he's starting to pray to something higher than himself. And he was like, well, it doesn't matter what it is. I mean, it could be, you can call it the universe, source, God. It doesn't have to be an organized religion, but he has found through his own journey and experience that after so much meditation, after so much, a little bit of plant medicine, whatever it may be, therapy, there's just certain things that he can't figure out, or he can't grasp, and believing in a higher form of something has helped with remaining humble and having some sense of humility.
Yeah, I think that's really important. So I grew up Lutheran. I was confirmed Lutheran, Christian Lutheran, in like 8th grade or something.
I was Catholic.
You know, went to a private school, the whole deal.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of fell away from it in my college years because that's when you get like this massive ego. You're like, oh, science, right? Like,
Yeah.
You know, who would be dumb enough to to believe in religion or something like that?
Yeah.
That's like the old mindset I used to have.
Yeah.
And I haven't like, you know, it's not like I go to mass or church every Sunday or whatever. Or even that, you know, like that version of the higher power being, you know, like King James Christianity as it is in the Bible and stuff like that. But like, there's a reason that all of that text was written. There's a reason that humans over the course of multiple centuries have like, you know, felt almost morally obligated to think of something bigger than themselves, like whatever deity or whatever form that takes place in. So like, I'm kind of going through that journey myself. My girlfriend is, she is Christian herself. I don't really know what denomination she like, you know, kind of grew up Jehovah's Witness and like got out of that.
Yeah.
But, you know, throughout the course of us being together, whether it's we drive by a car, she would say a car wreck. She's from Texas. I would say car crash. She would say car wreck. If we drive by a car wreck, if we are in, you know, downtown Austin and we see some homelessness, you know, people experiencing homelessness on the side of the road or at stops or whatever, I'll just like glance at her and notice she's like kind of talking to herself. And recently I asked her, I'm like, what are you saying? She goes, well, I'm praying for them. I'm like, or I'm praying for that car wreck or those people. I'm like, that's really like interesting and like kind of cool. And like, it's also adorable. It's like, oh man. Okay. So you're like, you want, you know, it's not like we roll down the window and give a $5 bill to every, you know, a homeless person we see in Austin or wherever. But that little like prayer, it's like, I don't know. I think it's kind of interesting. I'm like, wow, her psyche has been like, she doesn't go to church every Sunday and it's not like that religious. We don't even have a Bible at the apartment, but she feels compelled to like pray or do something extra. Yeah. Which is just really, really interesting.
Yeah. And the other side of that, you could say, you could be angry at that homeless person. You could say like, why are you bothering me on the side of the street?
That's the thing, right?
Instead, she chose to pray and hope and give like some kind of hope or faith or some good energy to that person.
Yeah, she took in what was probably a crappy situation, right? If somebody's knocking on your window or holding up a sign, you feel bad for them, but you could also just as easily take it as get out of the road or you know, something like that, which I'm guilty of doing too. You know? But she like kind of blocked that negative response, channeled it into, I can't help this person physically, but I'm going to like, you know, it's a different way of handling it.
Sending good energy. It's like, and it makes you a better person.
You know, because like it's done over and over and over again. Then I wonder why she's so sweet and happy all the time. I'm like, okay, maybe there's something to learn here. You know, because in our jobs, dude, and you know this working with me, it's easy to get stressed out. And especially in a B2C company where you're like working with people can be frustrating. Half of my job is being frustrated for the most part because it's just dealing with different people and like, you know, it's kind of the 80-20 rule. I think 20% of the people we work with take up about 80% of our time, whether it's technical issues or not understanding something or doing, you know, whatever. Things happen. And so I get kind of just this natural tension built up. And then sometimes I feel as if like when I'm communicating to my coworkers, I'm just communicating as if I'm super stressed. So like I've been working with Katie and just kind of talking things through with her and like channeling things and making yourself like more mindful and like just communication also is a thing. Cause that's when she's praying for that homeless person, she's like communicating kind of, she's actually letting out that energy through communication. And it's like, just by doing that over and over and over again, you start to build up these different mental models of how you see a situation.
It's like a muscle and it almost becomes automatic. Yeah. And that makes it almost like an effortless action that you take that just makes you a better human. And so also to comment, like I mean, the moments that I've spent with you at Unchained, because we have worked with each other in different aspects, I never see it. You are someone that has You're humble. You have a nobility to your character, humility. You're always curious towards building your foundation, because like that's what we're doing with Unchained. That's like the super cool aspect of the technical concierge. And I'll let you kind of maybe introduce yourself a little bit more formally, but like to the listeners that don't know who or what Unchained is and who you are, but working alongside of you, it's been a pleasure, because we started around the same time.
Yeah, we did. Summer of 21.
Yeah, and to see your growth into the technical concierge, I think VP. Yeah, it is stressful, and there has been a more recent case of like certain clients that have dealt with some crazy shit.
Yeah, I mean, it's when you inject, and this is part of going back to that like health in the digital age.
Yeah,
like this is your financial health in the digital age as it relates to Bitcoin. You need to be holding your own keys so you don't get rug pulled by the exchanges of the world, which is a whole different podcast.
Yeah.
But what that does is it injects personal responsibility into the equation. And when you inject personal responsibility into a population that hasn't had to face personal responsibility for their finances over the course of the past, since 1971, basically, or whenever the going off the gold standard was, like, you're bound to run into cases that are just problem childs at the end of the day, right? For lack of a better phrase. And it's because this concept of personal responsibility has been so lost on people. And we're holding your own Bitcoin keys. Again, different podcasts, we get into that.
Touch on it a little bit, yeah.
But it's like that personal responsibility is hard. But thank you for the kind words. It's like we got to carry ourselves the way that Phil Geiger, our colleague at Unchained, put it to me when I first started was, whenever we're interacting with somebody in a crazy situation, they are holding their own keys to their Bitcoin wealth, but something crazy happens. Like, our role as the experts is to arrive at that situation as an emergency responder would arrive to a situation. Completely different, right? One is possibly more gravely serious because you're dealing with your health and like something like a car accident or something. But if you arrive to that situation like an emergency responder, you're calm, cool, collected. You've seen this before. You can help them out, and you're in a much better mental spot to do so. Versus, somebody comes to you and says, I lost one of my Bitcoin keys. And instead of like matching their freak out with your own freak out, that doesn't help anyone. And so it's like, but that is also a muscle. You got to practice it and got to be like very calm and cool with it. It's hard because I keep thinking, I put myself in their situation. If that was my Bitcoin, like, oh man, what the heck?
Yeah. Two threads that come to mind. So to comment on the lack of responsibility, I try to have a more maybe graceful perspective on like, okay, we had the Industrial Revolution, and throughout that time there was the American dream, and so there was specialization, and people were plumbers, or people were bankers, or people were all these different things, and it was nice to be able to live in a country where you can provide someone or you can give back to someone, or have that mutual exchange where you pay them for their specialty. And I think we've just kind of we've done that so much so that maybe, we're just kind of, lost in a way. But in regards to banking, yes, like we have totally just left all of our, and there was no reason to worry about this, but like, the bank that you interact with, they deal with everything, right? There's no worry of losing your wealth by your own hands. But but now there is.
Somebody steals your credit card, you file, not a claim, but like you reach out to Capital One and they fix it.
Yeah.
Or there's FDIC insurance for your bank account or something like that. But you hold the private keys to 50 Bitcoin, which is a material amount of wealth. And, something happens, you mess up because it's personal responsibility. Well, the Bitcoin network is unforgiving.
Right.
Bitcoin network's not going to say, oh, it was an accident? Okay, here, we'll just give you 50 more Bitcoin. There's a 21 million Bitcoin hard cap supply.
Yeah.
There's no central controller. You can't just get more of it. There's no refunds. There's no chargebacks. There's no it is finality. And so there's extreme responsibility. But with that comes extreme freedom and censorship resistance. and like a return to savings that is going to be ushering in a new wave of prosperity for like mankind, which is crazy to say. And we get to work in it, which is so freaking cool.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's, there's going to be a lot of people that have that alarm clock of personal responsibility going off right in their face. And they're going to have to either figure out a way to hit the snooze button or just wake up.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah. And the second thread that came to me earlier was building. So from our perspective, working at Unchained, building the muscle of that cool, calm collective. Because in the beginning, I mean, the infrastructure of the company, it was a startup. It was, you're going from Joe and Drew and then Velvet and Sam, and then, it built from four people to, 14 and then 30. And then now, I mean, we're probably over 100. And so in the beginning though, we didn't have that foundation of the technical concierge department really. And yeah, building that muscle for a very technical aspect that is very intense.
It is intense.
I'm curious how, because I was with you in the old office at times. And I remember you looking at me, and I work in the loan ops and now escrow department, but working in the lending department wasn't as intense. It's still, you're still working hard, but you're not face to face with clients. Sometimes I have been, but like face to face with clients that are telling you, hey, I've compromised my key quorum that secures my Bitcoin. And there was days where you were just like, I have been nonstop in meetings and just like, building that structure and that curriculum for other members of the team that have joined to be able to have a cool and collective demeanor. It's been, those moments must have been pretty intense.
I like to use the framing now. I mean, so still, even as, I lead the concierge team at Unchained, which has been, joined as a technical director and now lead the team. And it's an amazing group of folks we have on the team. That's what we do, is spend every single day directly interfacing with clients. I still spend most of my time doing that, even as leader of the team, which might change, hopefully, over time as we grow the team. But what the goal is, as we expand and as Bitcoin becomes, more ingrained in people's lives as a savings vehicle, it's not going away. So naturally, people are choosing to save in Bitcoin and secure it the right way is going to grow. The long-term thesis for the company is set. And what I like to use the word institution here. And so when I say institution, I mean it in, this is actually a really interesting point. So institutions are, when I say the word institution, I'm not saying like, a government body or like a university or something like that. Like when you hear the word institution, I'm thinking like, think about it more as like the institution of marriage. An institution is like a set of societal norms and relationships. That's an institution. So I want to create technical Bitcoin expertise as an institution within Unchained. I want to embed concierge principles as an institution within the client services team at Unchained. So, there's that everybody that I look across the office, if we're in person, downtown Austin, I look across at, one of the multiple members of our client services team, not just concierge, but client services as a whole. And I know that person I'm looking at, knows is an emergency responder. Right? Who has my back. That person is an emergency responder. That person is an emergency responder. We have this team at Unchained, that's the goal, that like anybody at Unchained can help somebody who's in a precarious situation, one of our clients, because we've embedded Bitcoin knowledge as an institution within the company. That's really the goal, and it's starting to take shape. Tom Honzik, killer. That guy is like, I have been so fortunate to work with him over the course of the past, like, what was it, over a year and a half? Well over a year and a half, on its way to being 2 years in December. He's the man, dude. I would not be where I am at in my career without Tom. Tom has put together educational content. He's worked with clients. He's gotten great reviews. He has made his teammates around him better. He's helped educate his own teammates. Like I need Tom from as a manager standpoint. I need Tom, but cloned. I'm trying to figure out that whole deal.
Yeah.
But David Layton is the same way. David Layton started around the same time as me and is just an absolute like, he's just like setting people up with private keys and talking about Bitcoin is that man's passion. And now he's starting to do, kind of let that blossom into businesses and enterprises as his career trajectory moves within Unchained. And it's like, okay, the institution of Bitcoin, deep Bitcoin knowledge is spreading. You are like, compared to 2 years ago, you know more about Bitcoin technicals than you did 2 years ago, derivation paths and how cold cards work and all this crazy stuff, just from osmosis through being around it, through being close to that institution, which is really, really cool. And that institution strengthens over Slack messages, over emails, over lunch conversations. So my goal is like the next couple of years, that's just like that institution continues to grow and get more embedded.
Yeah. Well said. Yeah. I think it's great that you broke that down, that definition of institution, because I think a lot of people have potentially lost trust.
Oh, we're anti-institution naturally as Bitcoiners. So when I say institution, I mean like a set of societal norms and relationships within a larger peer group. Yeah.
Yeah. Well said. I feel like you did get a good description of your role and the evolution of your role with Unchained. And so on the topic of, maybe failing institutions, I saw you tweet CJ Wilson, you admired his talk at BitBlock Boom.
Big time, yeah.
And I did as well. I was there for the majority of it, and then I left to go to the bathroom or something. But I did feel what he was saying. And I think that's actually what got me into Bitcoin. So I guess this might be a two-part question. So you can begin wherever you want. But one is, what stood out to you with CJ's talk? And we can kind of maybe give some description to his talk. And then also, like, what drove you to Bitcoin? Because for me, it was the social fabric of society maybe degrading in my perspective. And I was really unsure during COVID, like, how can we kind of pull this all together? And then I read the Bitcoin Standard and I was like flabbergasted, and just so many things connected for me. And I was like, whoa, this is it. This is it. And like Robert Breedlove has had this podcast conversation with a young gentleman that speaks to, like, everybody's got a boogeyman. It could be like, oh, people are blaming the Fed, or people are blaming communism or capitalism or racism or whatever. Like, they all have their own boogeyman, but they can't figure out, it's just coming down to one, potentially the root of the problem is coming down to one thing. And there's a lot of different things that, Bitcoin's not going to solve. I mean, we say like Bitcoin solves this or
right. Bitcoin fixes this.
Bitcoin fixes this, but there's definitely other things that we have to do to kind of, maintain the fabric of society to be as peaceful, prosperous, and in harmony. But so anyways, two-part question. What stood out to you in CJ's presentation? Because I think that it's really important for more people to hear what he had to say, and some people are like totally unaware of it. And then also, what brought you into Bitcoin?
So for CJ's talk, I'm totally blanking on the title of his talk, but really, like, I know he has, over the course of his own Bitcoin journey, and like, he is a former MLB All-Star pitcher, right? He did, and he's really into luxury or like vehicles. I know he has like a dealership out in California. I believe it's in California. So he's like, he's got his other passion areas.
It was called In Broad Daylight.
In Broad Daylight.
In Broad Daylight.
So thank you for that.
Yeah.
So CJ's, like, just because he's a close friend of Unchained and I've been around him, and it's like, okay, I look at what he's doing within Bitcoin, and he is like, he's the opposite of complacent. He is like, he's kind of going in areas where other Bitcoiners, I think, have like not gone, either out of this like principle or something like that. And by that, I mean, talking to government. He's been out on Capitol Hill. He's done these like things where Bitcoiners are so, not only fuck the Fed, but also like government is terrible. It's the root of all problems in society, which I don't necessarily disagree with, but like,
it's there, right?
It's there, got a big presence. And it needs to be dealt with. Yeah. And so CJ, along with some other individuals, I won't remember everybody, but they contributed to this book called Bitcoin and the American Dream. And
Jimmy Song.
Yes.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, that sort of action, not only writing the book, but going and talking to political leaders, making Bitcoin's presence known as not just a put $1 in, get $3 out, pump and dump vending machine, if you're lucky, sort of like gambling thing. Not even as an investment, but as a like structural change to the monetary system that's important, that's global, it's bigger than just the US. And we're going to be left behind if we don't act on, taking it seriously. He's taken that conversation to like Capitol Hill and is like more involved in pushing Bitcoin forward, honestly, than your average laser eye hodler on Twitter. That's just like when it boils down to it, like, so his talk at BitBlock Boom, like I really, my like most important takeaway was, we say it all the time as Bitcoiners, we're going to win, right? We're going to win. Bitcoin fixes this. We can say that and tweet that and type that out all day long and say it to each other as we're, passing each other in the Bitcoin Commons in Austin. But like, Bitcoin doesn't win unless we take it upon ourselves to, strike out, as CJ Wilson has done in his career, to, unless we like put the effort in to strike out the batter, to make it known to government officials, to organizations, 3-letter agencies, whoever your boogeyman is. Like, you can hate the boogeyman, you can think less of them, but like, we need to make it apparent that Bitcoin is a thing. It's not going anywhere. And then, at the end of the day, I see these institutions bending the knee to Bitcoiners, but only if we put in the effort to win. We're not going to win by being complacent. We're going to win by being active. So that's what I really liked from CJ Wilson's talk.
Yeah. And just,
he's a man with experience in that area.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to comment on that, there was another talk. I think it was actually the next day. It was Parker Lewis, who's
that?
Oh man, he's some G. He's
just some guy.
Just some
Bitcoin guy.
I really, I've had a lot of admiration for Parker. Just his presence, how he leads. But his talk at this year's BitBlock Boom, he did say like, we've already won, and he talks about the convergence of money being, the convergence of one, right? And I see he's a man of strategy, and another person that's like taking action to help with this, with society, the fabric of society, adopting Bitcoin and becoming a more harmonious, complex organism. And, him going towards the company, the new company he's working at. Zapprite. And just talking about, making Bitcoin payments. Cause like for me, I have kind of straying away, because I know I gave you a 2-part question, but
it's okay.
I like how he made that move. Like, he made that move to help build a company, make it the norm for your company to have just like a super seamless business in like payment invoice with Bitcoin. Because for me, like I have a little bit of resistance to like wanting to pay in Bitcoin, because I'm like, well, then I could get taxed more on that on top of the taxes that I'm already facing, right?
Right.
And so anyways, like it's just really cool to see these leaders like CJ, like Parker, and it's a privilege to like watch how they are operating. Right. And so I totally agree. Like, instead of just, okay, yeah, you're utilizing the network by hodling, by holding your own keys, what else can you do? Can you, like, for me, it's, creating this podcast is a flow of creativity and having Bitcoiners on and other people on, but
the synergies are everywhere. It's like, how can you put your proof of work on display? Right?
Yeah.
Your proof of work isn't going to be creating a Twitter account and, just like hopping in the replies of, whatever the meme of the day is. Right. Yeah. It's like putting your effort in is being a leader. It's creating a project. It's becoming part of the music. And some people are larger parts of the music than others, but like, I view my proof of work as setting up thousands of people with private keys. And you play a role in that as well. Like, it's much more than just being complacent and seeing Bitcoin win, and just kind of like in a way, you are then a beneficiary of like it's still Cantilianism, in my opinion. If Bitcoin wins and you just kind of didn't do anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sure, maybe you were smart enough in the moment to understand Bitcoin's a better money, so you saved in Bitcoin, and then you just kind of win by default, because off the backs and proof of work and hard work of all these other people. But Bitcoin's so much larger than just, Parker and CJ and Unchained.
Yeah, of course.
But it's still that kind of like innate recognition that we need to do something. We need to be active. So second part of your question, though, was what got me into Bitcoin. Dude, it was putting $1 in and getting $3 out. I think a more important question is why did I stay in Bitcoin?
Yeah.
And didn't just sell it,
It's like Eric Kaysen, he's laughed at this so many times, and I've heard him say, it's like everybody just comes for a number go up, and then you just get like, your whole fabric of reality just gets completely turned
and that's so
around.
true. Like, I was like buying whatever tokens would go up in 2017.
Yeah.
And like, that's why I got interested in Bitcoin, is because I was like, wow, the first time in my life as a young professional with disposable income in my first job could invest, quote unquote, and it could be this new thing that, my dad and uncle don't know anything about. So I can be like this, I can talk about it and feel cool, and it's Bitcoin or crypto, and I can put in $1,000 into Bitcoin, and then and a couple months later it's $1,500, and wow, I'm brilliant. But like, why did I stay? That's a whole different conversation, and that's where Eric Kaysen's point of like, and as like part of this is at Unchained, when somebody signs up to get onboarded, and by that we mean like, we'll work with you directly to set up your hardware wallets and hold you the keys to your own Bitcoin. When somebody signs up for Concierge onboarding, we send them sometimes their hardware wallets in the mail, but no matter what, we send them the inheritance protocol. And so the thought there, which is really kind of genius, was that, like, let's say you have $2,000 worth of Bitcoin. Not a substantial amount of Bitcoin by any means, but $2,000, and you don't want it on Coinbase, whatever. You spend the money to get onboarded with Unchained. You have financial investments elsewhere, real estate, maybe, whatever. Like, Bitcoin's a very small part of your life, but you hear that you need to do it the right way. So it's like, okay, I'll hold my own keys and get some education out of it. The hardware wallets show up at your door, and then so does this blue envelope. You're like, what the hell is this? You open it up, inheritance protocol. Oh, inheritance? What? I just have $2,000 worth of Bitcoin. We at Unchained are making that assumption that we're just going to hit you right in the face with your grandchildren are going to want this, right? Like, what are you doing to protect this $2,000 worth of Bitcoin for generations? And they I think psychologically to the client, they're just like, oh, wow, what the fuck?
I was planning on selling this for tax
what
season.
The fuck? Inheritance? I'm not thinking about that. And it's like, well, you should be, because it's the best money in the world. But like, just by shipping the inheritance protocol with every concierge order, I think that's really interesting. But what's made me stay into Bitcoin was local meetups. So like, I purchased Bitcoin significantly and got rid of my like shit coins or whatever that I was doing, which really wasn't all that much, which like I'm proud of. But like, it was, Ethereum, World Computer, I bought into the whole meme. But then as soon as I went Bitcoin only, because I like just was done gambling basically, I had it on the exchange, didn't hold my own keys, but I was like, okay, I could probably learn more about it. I actually stayed because I wanted to have like a blog or a website and do this thing, like, have a newsletter. I was like, okay, first time in my life out of college, I have disposable income. I'm working at a company, but I want like a side hustle. I want more money. What's this new thing that I could, leverage my knowledge on? Okay, well, I own Bitcoin. That's kind of cool. Not a lot of people know about it yet. Could I start a newsletter or whatever? That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to like start this website where it covered Bitcoin and other cryptos, and was like, basically like, I wanted to make like a little coin desk, what could be my publication that I could do as this little side project. And I realized quickly I didn't know enough about Bitcoin. I wasn't running a node. I didn't hold my own keys, didn't even know what that was. So I was living in Minneapolis at the time, and I went to a Minneapolis Bitcoin meetup. There was about 6 of us there at a brewery in Minneapolis called Prize Brewing. Of those 6 people, Brandon Quittem, who led the Minneapolis meetup, he was there. He was my like very first person that I shook hands with in Bitcoin. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Brandon's the man. I don't know
Yeah.
if he remembers it as much as I do, but walked into Prize, saw a dude with long blonde hair, like in a little man bun up at the counter ordering a beer. And I think it was him from like Twitter or wherever. I was like, Brandon, and like shook his hand. I'm like, I'm here for the meetup. And sat down. Right next to Brandon was Cam Stromey, who was, our former colleague at Unchained, who got me to come to Unchained and stuff like that. So it's just like right away, like thrust into this, like, wow, this is a cool group of folks to be having a beer with talking about Bitcoin, and amongst other folks at the Minneapolis meetup. And that conversation, that first night at Prize, we talked about, of course, the price of Bitcoin, what was happening around Bitcoin at that time. We talked about Lolly was a really popular, browser extension that had just gotten started around that time. And so we just started to talk about, but it was only Bitcoin things. It was kind of like shitting on everything else, right? Like blockchain technology and like these other Ethereum and stuff. It was a Bitcoin only meetup. And I'm like, okay, through this conversation, just couple hours at Prize Brewing, I was learning more about Bitcoin. I'm like, okay, got to go to this Minneapolis meetup every month. And through that meetup, so much was offered to me by the way of, learning and inspiring me to go down the rabbit hole, to buy a cold card, to listen to RHR and Rabbit Hole Recap and stuff. And like to Marty and Matt Odell, like to get them in my ear for that intimate podcast conversation we were talking about earlier, like all that stuff. It was just like, it truly was stumbling down the rabbit hole. And every Minneapolis meetup we kept them going throughout COVID. We did one Zoom meetup, collectively decided that was bullshit. And then we met up at like this, one of the members of our meetup had like this office location. It was like 2020, height of COVID, but we were all meeting up, drinking bourbon, talking about Bitcoin. It felt like that, like Revolutionary War period era. We're just like all in the cold in Minneapolis talking about Bitcoin. We had summer meetups in the park. Cam, I think it was Cam, got us all a copy of Economics in One Lesson by Henry Hazlitt.
Oh, wow.
Justin Muller, who is a part of the Minneapolis Bitcoin meetup, got actually a grant from, I might mess this up. I think his grant was from Spiral to work on Fedimint. But he's part of the Minneapolis Bitcoin meetup. Maybe it's not grant from Spiral. If Justin's listening, I'm sorry. But he is great. And he like gave a whole workshop on how to, like run a node or download Bitcoin Core, or like use a cold card or like all these things. It was just all this information through human to human contact and talking about it, and not from scrolling Twitter. That was the key. Which is why I think third places like the Commons, Bitcoin Park, PubKey in New York, which I haven't been to yet, but I hear it's cool. Like these third spaces are so freaking important. Local meetups are really important. Came to Bitcoin for Number Go Up, stayed in Bitcoin because there was so much to learn and because the people in it were just really inspiring to be around. Sorry, super long answer to your question.
Don't apologize. That's exactly why I had you on. I wanted to hear that more intimate, journey of yours. And yeah, a lot to unpack there. I think the meetups are very important. I think it's because like I didn't have that at first. I was in Boston when I was learning about Bitcoin, and then I read the Bitcoin Standard, I read the Sovereign Individual, I read a few other books, and then I got onto Bitcoin Twitter, and it was a double-edged sword. It was like pretty helpful, but also like, if you're on there all the time scrolling, it can get a little...
It's mob mentality. Yeah. And it's just like...
And so the mob mentality kind of made me, intimidated. When I joined Unchained too, I was like, is this going to be like Bitcoin Twitter? And not at all. No. It's been culture has been amazing. But yeah, man, that's very interesting. That's so cool that you met Cam and Brandon. Brandon has such a unique perspective on Bitcoin. He intertwines like mycelium and mushrooms and different aspects of Bitcoin with like, just nature.
Well, as that Minneapolis meetup grew, it was like Jevy So Justin Evedon.
Oh, really?
So him and Brandon are really tight. They're like personal friends before Bitcoin. And so there's like Jevi. There was Carl Krecky, who works at Unchained, was a part of the Minneapolis Bitcoin meetup. It like grew and grew and grew. And it was just like, wow, we have such a stellar squad here. Mark, totally blanking out his last name. Mark Stephanie, who runs the I think he helped start the Progressive Bitcoiner podcast. He's an MD out of Minneapolis area, and he came to the meetups. He was really interested in it as like, a doctor, which is kind of cool. Yeah. And so we saw all walks of life. Like you could be a doctor, you could be just somebody who runs a shipping warehouse. You could be me. I was working for like a tech company. Carl was he was working for a lab at the University of Minnesota. All these different like people came together to learn about Bitcoin at these meetups. So can't, overstate the importance of local meetups. If you're listening to this, you're tangentially curious about Bitcoin, but you like Shane's podcast because it is about health, well-rounded health in the digital age. You want to learn more about Bitcoin. First things first, don't get on Twitter, search for a local meetup.
I think there's an app too that I saw at BitBlock Boom. I think it's called Orange Pilled. Yeah. It's an app. I can even look at it. I think I downloaded it.
So like the Orange Pill app will help you find a meetup, but I'm going to have to agree with, I think Stephen Hall on our team at Unchained. I'm not a fan of Orange Pill, the phrase.
Really? Okay.
I think there's so many weird things in Bitcoin that I'm not a fan of, but like we don't need, to shill digital pharmaceuticals to people. Like orange pilling sounds so weird. Like, like parts of me, like if you're talking to serious people with wealth or families,
I agree,
and you're talking about Bitcoin, like if the title of your presentation is getting orange pilled, it's like, what? Yeah. Like, it's just, to me, it's immature and it's not serious.
I would agree with that. I think that this actually happened naturally. Whenever I started to speak with other people, I would never say that. I would never say like, oh, there's a lot of people that get orange pilled. Like there's definitely been moments where I say I've gone down the rabbit hole but I think that's just a different way of framing it. A lot of people will say that for other things too. Right. It's like the rabbit hole of, Alice in Wonderland and just this stumbling of a endless journey of a specific category. And orange pilling, like I hear a lot of people use the term white pill and black pill and red pill and blue pill. And I'm like, sometimes I'm like, I don't even know what that means.
Yeah, we as a society don't need more pills. So let's just like cut that framing out.
No more big pharma. Yeah, the digital.
And I don't like pleb. I don't like cold storage. I don't like all these terms. I'm just not a big fan of for various different reasons.
Cold storage, I mean, that's something that I don't think Unchained really uses as much.
I mean, it's every now and then it's there, but like I just hate like scrolling on through apps or I get ads in like, my phone if I'm doing whatever. And because we work in Bitcoin, I'm sure my phone's listening to me. So it'll show me ads for like Ledger or Trezor or whatever. Yeah. And it's just like ultimate cold storage for your Bitcoin. It's like, that's so false. Yeah. Like cold storage is not the hardware wallet Trezor itself. Cold storage is something that you as the user act on. Like you can be using a Trezor, but you don't have cold storage if you put your seed phrase, if you email it to your attorney. So like, it doesn't matter if you use a Trezor, like using the phrase cold storage removes personal responsibility from the equation and makes people think that XYZ solution is the cold storage. And that's a false premise. It's like cold storage is how you treat the private key material. So I just don't like the cold storage phrasing. So many people are in it for that quick fix, that quick like solution, that pill that's going to help them lose weight instead of going out and exercising. They want that cold storage solution instead of learning to like, write down your seed phrase and keep it secure. Right. That's why I don't like cold storage.
How would you try to distinguish it to have a more effective conceptual, standpoint for people that is more simplistic? Yeah. It's like cold storage and hot storage, right? Like that for me now, it's instantaneous. Like I recognize, okay, what that means.
Yeah, and it's like an electrical thing. It's like hot is connected to
the internet,
or power or something. Cold is like it's safe to touch.
It's offline.
It's offline. So I do like the phrasing offline keys. I think offline keys is better than cold storage.
Okay.
Like keep your keys offline.
Okay.
It's weird to say keep your Bitcoin offline because Bitcoin's like not offline. It's
right.
associated with an address on the blockchain. Like it's kind of like forever online in a way. But your keys that can unlock and move your Bitcoin, those should be kept offline.
Yeah.
So I like offline keys more. It makes more sense. You can use a Trezor, but are your keys offline? Like that's what matters.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. I like the evolution of the different terminology. And I think
hardware wallet. Is it a hardware wallet? Is it a signing device?
Have we figured that out?
No. That one's just
what's going to happen with, like, where are we going with that? Are we going to solidify like a signing device or
I don't know.
I mean, private key,
key manager.
Yeah. Key manager. We're still figuring that out, I guess.
Key manager, just Bitcoin key, hardware wallet is probably the worst, but it's stuck around and I don't think it's going anywhere.
Hardware wallet. Yeah. I think we're going to look back. Cause like, yeah, that's just what I was introduced to. And I do feel looking back, we'll be like, that was a terrible decision.
Yeah. It's not the best. But I don't know what is going to be better.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you had another question lined up, but I wanted to, and we can keep it on the Bitcoin stuff, but also wanted to, because I think you're actually doing this without realizing it. And so I want to talk a little bit about indie hacking.
Sure.
If you're cool with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you familiar with indie hacking?
Not really.
Okay. So indie hacking, because you mentioned like digital nomad, right? And that was a phrase that was used in like maybe the mid to late 2010s or early 2010s if you were like an OG digital nomad. But it's this group of people who like decided digital nomads and indie hackers. Indie hacker stands for independent hacker. So like kind of decided that a 9-to-5 or, working for a corporation or a company was not for them. They didn't like the idea of having a boss and having like deliverables and OKRs and the corporatized bullshit. They just like, hey, I have a skill set and I'm going to independently hack my way to earning an income every month. And with that, I can do it from wherever I want. So it could be the proverbial example was from a beach in Bali or something like that. Working from a beach is probably horrible. It sounds great, but it's probably not the best idea. Or paints this really false like picture of what indie hacking is. But I've been like falling into this community pretty hardcore. So I've been like falling down that rabbit hole just as much as Bitcoin. And I've been trying to maybe what I should do is find a local meetup for indie hackers. But independently hacking your way to earn revenue and not have to work for a company, I think is a really, really interesting idea. And it doesn't have to be, when we say hacking, it doesn't have to be coding or learning to code. I think that's a large portion of it. And you should become technical enough in the year 2023 to like put a website together, know some HTML and CSS, and maybe even a little bit of JavaScript. That probably will take you a very long way.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
Because I didn't grow up as like going to be a software engineer, kind of teaching myself. But I think you're an example of indie hacking is you're independently hacking your away at your side project that could one day end up with revenue for you. So your version of indie hacking is putting together this, is putting together this podcast. That is indie hacking for sure. That's a way to indie hack.
Real quick, when I think of hacking, I just think of like shadowy cloaked engineers that are like hacking like a I don't know, software for a company or whatever. But hacking could also be considered maybe just
hacking is kind of like I view the phrase hacking as like you're carving. You're just hacking away at a project. You're carving away at your either your
okay. I'm totally like that. My first conception of it was coding. It could be general. Or is it or is it really specialized around coding?
No, it could be general. I think it's more tangentially. I mean, or not tangentially, but it's more like maybe focused on code, because a lot of indie hackers, like what's the most powerful way to earn money independently is to build a software because software scales so easily, right? If you wanted to create your own line of soaps that use beef tallow or whatever, because they're sustainable soaps, like that is indie hacking your way into a marketplace of a physical product. But it's like, it doesn't really involve code, but it's harder to scale. Software, you could create a little web app that turns every website you go to into dark mode automatically as a browser extension. And it costs $2 a month for users to use, and you put it on the Google Chrome App Store, and immediately it's available to all 2 billion Chrome users. That's like a way of indie hacking. And so there's indie hackers as like the business. Indie hackers is actually, if you go to indiehackers.com, it's started by Cortland Allen, who is just this like software developer guy. Pretty cool. He has a cool podcast. He has people on his podcast that are making $10,000 a month, $20,000 a month just from like their own projects that they've started. And him and his brother own Indie Hackers. Stripe bought Indie Hackers, I think in 2017 or something like that. Because if you're an indie hacker, you have a software project and you want to take money for it, you naturally integrate Stripe. So Stripe thought it was probably a good strategic move to acquire indie hackers as like this community. It's a podcast, it's a newsletter, it's a website where indie hackers go on and share their stories and get interviewed. And I've just been going so hard at listening to these stories to try to get inspired, because I do think that one day, I don't necessarily want to work for a company. I think it'd be great to have the freedom and flexibility to put value out into the world through an acquired skill set and receive value back, because it's 2023 and this is available to us now. You literally couldn't do this in even 2003, like 20 years ago, because think of all the tools we have at our disposal now, man.
It's crazy.
We have like lightning fast internet in most areas of the United States or the world broadly. Easy ways to take payment online with Stripe. You have educational resources that can help you program and code and build websites.
And it's free. It could be free. Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's nuts.
Like this opportunity has never been here before to this degree. And like the fact that people aren't like taking this opportunity and just like going hard with it, it's wild to me.
Yeah, I love that you bring this up, because it's so funny how it's very like the synchronicity between some of where my mind has been, my attention has been. I love working for Unchained, and I love working for a company.
Same.
And I love the culture. And we are on the cutting edge of a new technology that provides us with constantly stimulating new ideas and new innovations. It's a blessing to work for the company. But I do also have this yearning, this calling to develop my own business. And this yearning has been more pronounced over the course of the past week. And it's so awesome that you just brought this up, because it's
dude, check out Indie Hackers.
I'm going to, for sure.
Indie Hackers is crazy. It's inspiring. There's Indie Hackers on the website that are just software projects. There's like physical stuff. The founder of Kettle and Fire.
That's
Justin Mayers.
That was local here.
So Justin Mayers,
Austin.
Just kind of, I don't know, maybe Jose can edit this out, but Justin Mayers' brother Nick Mayers used to live with Kayla Costa and her boyfriend. So there's like a huge like close circle there. So like,
oh, cool.
Kayla used to live with the founder of Kettle and Fire's brother, and so like we like have this. It's really crazy. Austin is wild. Kayla, our friend at Unchained. But Kettle and Fire like is just like bone broth, right? But like the founder Justin was on Indie Hackers telling about his story. Like, he's like he indie hacked. That's an example of indie hacking. Starting your own business, basically. It's an entrepreneurship.
Cool. That's super cool. And so what do you currently foresee yourself doing?
I don't really know. I've been kind of like training myself to spot business opportunities, and I don't just want to do like I'm not going to be that drop shipper, affiliate marketing type of like revenue. I don't think that's for me. I really want to, right now I'm learning a bunch of different kind of like sides of web development. So back-end web development using PHP, which is maybe a weird choice, but most of the internet's built with PHP, and it's actually gotten a lot better. Laravel is like a really interesting web building framework built with PHP. And so like PHP is interesting. JavaScript obviously is kind of like the language of the internet. Most browsers just kind of run JavaScript. And so like if you can become reasonably proficient at a backend language, or even just JavaScript, HTML and CSS is like your styling, you can put together a decent website and like do something. And so I just want to like build a tool that does something for people.
Yeah.
Throughout this journey of kind of learning, I've been really infatuated with Git. So do you know much about Git?
Like GitHub?
Well, so GitHub is like a company and is a way to aggregate code bases, like code repositories.
Yep.
It's like Unchained has a GitHub, or whatever companies have GitHubs. But Git itself, just Git, is an open source tool. It was built by Linus Torvalds, or however you pronounce his name. He's the creator of Linux. And Git is just like, it's what's called version control for your code. So remember when you're in college or high school and you're writing an essay for a class, some assignment, and like you save it in Microsoft Word, you saved it like essay, and then you save it again, essay1 or essay_final.1. Like you have all these different versions of your essay based on when you last saved it or worked on it. Git is a way to do version control, but for code. So like you and I are working on a piece of software, so an example of this would be Caravan. Caravan is a tool built by Unchained. It's open source. So the code is out on GitHub, but if you want to, you can clone all the code for Caravan on your own computer, build a little feature on it. I want to change the colors on Caravan from the Unchained blue to green. I can do that because it's open source, and Git can help me clone the code base, make my own changes, and I'm running my own fork of Caravan.
Okay.
So Git is just fascinating. I probably didn't do the best job of describing it.
That made a lot of sense.
But Git is like version control for code. And I'm like, wow, open source is built on Git. Teams around, like software engineering teams around the world use Git. It's kind of like this like version control system that people are using. And so all that is to say, this probably sounds super boring to anyone else listening.
No.
All that is to say, I want to build, through learning Git, I want to build a tool that helps people learn Git. I want to build the best way to learn Git on the internet. And that's what I want to build. And so I'm learning to code in JavaScript and PHP and HTML and CSS and stuff like that, with the goal of this project of helping people learn Git.
That's
kind
awesome.
Of an interesting thing. Yeah.
It's like a course. Would
Kind of
be
like
the
a
product.
course. Yeah, it'd be like a course.
Okay.
Yeah. It's very interesting.
Yeah. I was gonna ask another question. What are you using to learn how to code? With those languages, I've heard of Code Academy.
So I am for PHP and like Laravel. I'm using Laracast as a website founded by Jeffrey Way. At $15 a month, there's a huge library of videos and courses. I've been using that. And then for JavaScript, mostly YouTube, honestly.
Okay.
Not using any like the Code Academy or Free Code Camp or these boot camps or anything.
Sure.
Honestly, I'm just tinkering, which is, I think and also, great question. So not just using YouTube, I actually think the best thing that I've done in my journey to learn to code is ChatGPT.
Really?
Dude, by far. I pay for ChatGPT 4 because I'm a simp. And what I do is if I watch a YouTube video, let's say I want to there's a YouTube video that shows me using JavaScript how to click a button. Like I have my website page that I style in HTML and CSS. And then I want a button that if you click the button, a little form pops up and you can enter your name and press save. Do all that in JavaScript. I follow a YouTube video to write that code in JavaScript. Okay, I have the code because I followed the YouTube video. I don't really know what this does. Like I'm playing with fire. Like I built this button that I can click and it works, but I don't know what this code does.
Mm.
Like, what does this line of code do? What I do is I copy that line of code, paste it into ChatGPT and say, hey, can you tell me, break this down like you'd teach it to a 7-year-old? What does this line of code do?
Wow.
And ChatGPT will say, no problem. That line of code references this JavaScript library, and we're using this function will do this. You can always use this code, for a button on your website or whatever. It'll give me like everything, and I debug my code. I learn my code through like pair programming with ChatGPT. So I don't use ChatGPT to write the code, and that's important. I feel like a lot of people do that these days. They use AI as like a crutch. They're like, oh, AI can code now? Okay, build me an app that does this.
Right.
And they get a bunch of shit code. Really, the best way to use AI tools is to learn to code yourself, but use it as that, like, you have a world-class computer science instructor sitting on your shoulder.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, did I write this code right? What does this mean? What does this do? How does this piece of code connect to this piece of code? ChatGPT is just there to tell you.
Yeah.
In ways that Google and Stack Overflow or Stack Exchange never could.
That's fascinating. And I think there's, I'm trying to remember the name of the company too. Marty Bent has had him on the podcast, and the way that he looks, I mean, I think his company is intertwining AI and coding. It's like a coding base camp, and
Replit.
Yes.
Ahmad.
Yes. Ahmad. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That looks pretty fascinating. And so it does seem to me like, you do need to understand how to code, right? But it's just much easier. And so for like really proficient expert coders, I'm sure they're just like cheesing over this, because a lot of maybe the mundane, like I remember being in college and being in a computer science class, and they just had me literally type every single symbol of the URL and like coding and stuff. And I can see how AI can drastically reduce the amount of, maybe I wouldn't call it mundane, but just the monotonous like coding in a way. Am I correct in that presumption?
Yeah, it's like, trying to think of like the best analogy would be like so this is probably not the best analogy, but like let's say like cooking. Let's say you've never made paella before, but you really want to make a good seafood paella with the crispy rice, and you have a cast iron pot. You have everything you need, but you don't know how to put it all together. And so ChatGPT would basically be your sous chef in the kitchen. You're the head chef, ChatGPT is the sous chef, and it would be kind of right next to you as you're building your paella, and you're saying, hey, right now, this is when you should put the rice in with the bone broth. Yeah. And then while that's cooking, go over and start preparing your shrimp.
That's a good analogy.
It's like, oh, okay, it's like a sous chef that's with you. A lot of people treat it as their own personal chef. Say, hey, make me that paella. That's the wrong way to use AI for coding. And I think Ahmad knows that with Replit, because that's why with Replit, you kind of have like a little co-pilot that can help you debug your code, not only write something, but tell you what it means so you can kind of internalize it.
That's super cool.
Yeah, it's really fascinating,
cool.
dude. And so like,
and I'm not a coder, and I still think that's super cool. And I've pondered on like learning to code, because out of almost like necessity, a feeling of necessity.
And it's so freaking cool to write code and see it work.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh my God, this is amazing. But then let's like, wait. People have been coding for decades and decades now.
In a way, yeah.
But like,
in a much
I can
way.
finally do this.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that mystical black box anywhere. It's like, it's right here. And also when you're coding, when you're programming, computers will do what you tell it to do. So it's not that hard. It's like, go forward, go back, turn left, turn right. Computer will do everything you want it to do if your code is correct. And if it's not correct, you get a little error message, and just paste that error into ChatGPT and be like, hey, where's this code wrong?
And that saves probably so much time, because you previously had to just, with your human eyes, just go down all the code to find where the bug was. Now you can just copy and paste, and it just
tells you
pretty proficiently. It tells you where the bug is.
This was wrong because you forgot to put a semicolon there.
Yeah.
Put a semicolon there.
Hours, like so many hours of just that one semicolon.
Yes.
Oh God.
But it can help you it can be that sous chef for you. It tell you, hey, you forgot to add salt. It's up in the cupboard. It's like, oh, well, okay.
Cool.
And so it makes indie hacking, to tie it back to that conversation,
Yeah.
it makes indie hacking so much easier. You know, you have a little thought about a cool app or a cool, what would be a cool thing that you think you could sell to people. Makes it so much easier.
Yeah. And then to tie it into people that are listening, that might not be interested in coding, like,
yeah, we just took a really weird turn from Bitcoin into indie hacking and coding and business building.
I love it.
I think it's really important.
I love it. And something that came to mind, and I was expressing this before, just with, so to put these two together, Naval Ravikant's statement of, there's like 8 billion people in the world. I hope there's 8 billion companies or businesses. And then the course that Dan Coe offers, which I'll send to you because you might be interested in the future.
Yeah.
I think it's a high valuable course that's relatively cheap for, I think, the value that you're getting. But Dan Coe incorporates this. I think it might cater more towards like personal branding, but I think, even if you might not necessarily, like you specifically think, like you might not want to create a personal brand, you might still be able to tie in the information and lessons within this course towards whatever you're trying to build. Because like whatever you build with, trying to teach people how to use Git, right? That's what you're trying to do. You're eventually going to need to market it. And so if you can market it in your own authentic way, it might even help you with, just having more fulfillment, because you're not paying, like you said, affiliates or
for sure. Yeah. There's definitely, and that's a problem. And that's another thing, right? Like if you are indie hacking or you want to indie hack, you want to build your own project, but but you spend days agonizing over what your website's going to be called or like how you're going to market it. When you do that right away, you might as well just say sayonara to that idea, right? It's like, so to your point, I will probably want to focus on that, but like I want something to market first.
Yeah.
So like got to finish actually coding it, building it, talking to people. Hey, would you use this? Do you think this is cool?
Yeah.
We have a unique opportunity at Unchained. I can go to our developers, Buck and Sasha, and say like, hey guys, is this cool? Is this right? Is this accurate? Would you use this? Like, is this kind of interesting? If a new engineer joins the Unchained team and they're maybe unfamiliar with the way we use Git, would you like them to use this as a way to learn? Once I do all that, then marketing it would be really important.
That's cool. Where to take this next? I do have a couple questions for you. So,
of course.
And we have some more time. So, I was wondering, let's see, there's two topics that might get pretty esoteric for people that are listening that might not even, it's definitely esoteric. What are you most excited about within the Bitcoin industry? So there is this talk of Frost. That's an example. Is there anything that comes to mind that you could potentially speak to in layman's terms, that which is hard?
Well, like
how will it help others, or just whatever you feel.
I think the technical stuff is like, it's cool, but it's for a specific audience, like
Marty's podcast comes to mind.
Sure.
He's definitely like mainly a Bitcoin and maybe economics too. But
or like Bitcoin Review, like NVK's podcast that he does. It's like that technical stuff is one thing. What I'm really most excited about is just the normalization of Bitcoin. Like I'm really excited for the Thanksgivings and Christmases where I can go home and like it's no longer this crazy thing that I'm working in Bitcoin or that we talk about Bitcoin. And maybe we don't even talk about it at all because my family members are purchasing it without even knowing it. through the ETF because it's in their pension plan or it's in their 401k or whatever. Like, I'm very excited for the normalization of Bitcoin. I'm excited to tell people that I helped, really work for, the biggest Bitcoin financial services company in the world. I helped build that. When the world transitioned over to Bitcoin as kind of being the standard, I was there and played a role at that company. That's what I'm like looking forward to that. The technical stuff, Frost is cool, but like you say that and to the listener or to most people, our clients, it goes over their head and they don't really care. They want to know their Bitcoin is safe, accessible, and that's pretty much it. And growing in purchasing power against the US dollar. That's really what they give a shit about.
Yeah.
So as like, while it's technically kind of fun, it's also like, yeah, I guess I'm excited for different cryptographic primitives to come to Bitcoin. What the fuck does that mean? I don't even know half of what that means. So it's like, to talk about that stuff would just be probably doing a lot of people a disservice unless you're like in a room drinking beers with engineers.
Yeah.
But more so, I'm excited for the normalization of Bitcoin at the policy level, stuff CJ Wilson's working on. I'm excited for it to become more normalized within my peer groups and my friends and my family. I'm excited for it to continue to grow in purchasing power, to validate a lot of what we've been working on so hard, and a lot of like, honestly, torment we've gone through with the downturns in Bitcoin, right? So like, I'm just excited for the future, for Bitcoin to kind of grow in popularity. I think like the more and more I've been thinking about this, this might be a hot take. I actually think the name Bitcoin does like a lot of harm, or it did in the early days, or even does now. Like, my girlfriend used to make this joke when we first started seeing each other, when I told her I would work for a Bitcoin company. She's like, that sounds like something you get in Mario, like when you're playing, you get a little Bitcoin.
Yeah.
It's like, people don't take it, and this is really superficial. And as a Bitcoiner, I don't really care about this at a deep level, but I can appreciate how somebody would feel this way, that the name Bitcoin just sounds fake, sounds scammy, sounds fake, sounds like futuristic, or maybe it's an arcade game and not a monetary paradigm shift, right? I don't know what else it would be called, but Bitcoin, I think, is the name of it.
Freedom money.
Yeah, right? Like, it's going to take a while for people to take that seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure dollar, really, I mean, at the end of the day, that doesn't mean much.
Yeah.
But like, Bitcoin and monopoly money are closer than Bitcoin and dollar in the minds and psyche of a lot of people right now. And so that's unfortunate, because we see the other side of it. We're in it every day. We're like in the trenches. It's our world. It's our online experience. It's our work experience. But like, you go to somebody who's just living in rural Massachusetts or rural Wisconsin, where I'm from, they hear Bitcoin. Maybe they saw it on the news. They hear about Sam Bankman-Fried and FTX, and it's automatically a scam. It's like, okay, so it's going to take time for people to understand that, oh, Bitcoin, you mean like the internet money, like the money that we now use as kind of like globally, the money that nations buy oil in, the money that large prices are denominated in, the money that that went up in US dollar terms pretty crazily, the money that I thought I was late on, but now I save my money in it, the money that is the best performing ETF out there, like, that's probably going to happen. Like, just, oh, Bitcoin, you mean the new money? Like, that's what it's eventually going to be.
Yeah.
It's going to be less about Bitcoin and crypto. So like,
yeah. No, I that's a interesting response. And I've talked to our dear friend Tom Honzik, and he's claimed, and I think also Parker and other people have claimed, that hyper Bitcoinization, if you want to call it that, or just the normalization of Bitcoin, could very much happen in the 2030s. And
hyper normalization of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Rather than hyper Bitcoinization, I think.
Yeah.
Do you probably think, same outcome, but
yeah. Do you agree with that time frame, that prediction?
Yeah, that's 7 years from now, 6 years from now. We're getting closer to 2024, 6 and change. And like, that's realistic to me. Like, very realistic, incredibly realistic. we need it to be. Otherwise, we're going to be in a really, really shitty spot. Just with US dollar inflation and kind of like, global like hegemons fighting each other and stuff like that. Like, it's going to be a weird decade, but I think if you're a Bitcoin holder and you understand the importance of a non-state money without seigniorage, you're in a good spot.
There's one question that I have that would be off topic of Bitcoin, but there is maybe one that I'd like to look at. So there was a really interesting talk at BitBlock Boom, and I think you and Tom left to go back to work. It was on Friday. It was the first day. It was this gentleman from Barefoot Mining, and he was speaking to, he pretty much, it was very eloquently put together, and he broke it down very granularly, talking about the mean and median block time, the time in which a block is mined, and then discussed transaction fees and whatnot, and introduced the potentiality of a block time wars, and how we are so early and we've probably transacted on chain, the base layer, many times. And he had a lot of great points, and he was saying how it's going to eventually be a privilege to have your Bitcoin on chain and to hold your own keys. Very interesting. He was saying a small percentage of people in the world will be able to do that. And he broke down, like, because of how expensive transaction fees will be, you're really going to have to plan ahead of time. Like, once per year, you're going to have to make a transaction on chain and introduce these different things. And so it got me thinking differently about the evolution of Unchained. So, like, I think we still, we're still looking at maybe bigger businesses, right? We do still help put keys in the hands of individuals as well. But I'm just curious if you ever thought about that.
For sure. No, it's a really good point. I heard that he was talking about that. The gentleman from Barefoot Mining, which is really cool.
Tom literally just left as he started talking. I was like, I think Tom would really love this.
Yeah, because it's at the end of the day, it's UTXO management.
Yes.
I do think it's crazy that we're in an. Are you in the Unchained Fantasy Football League?
I don't think so. Yeah, no.
So we have a Unchained Fantasy Football League, played in it last year, I'm in it this year, and we like the fee to enter the league is like 500,000 sats.
Okay.
So 500,000 sats, which is like 100 and something bucks.
Yeah. I did do like we did a price prediction, like an Unchained price prediction. I did that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like the fact that our Unchained Fantasy Football League dues, it was like $100 and worth of sats to join the Fantasy Football League. And we just all paid on chain.
You're right.
That's crazy. like in 2030, when the hyper normalization of Bitcoin happens, that's going to be nuts that we did that. Right? It'll be like, whoa, you guys used like on chain Bitcoin, like that was mined on the network to just pay your fantasy football dues. Like, nation states are trading globally in Bitcoin using that as the settlement layer. And you guys did that for fantasy football.
And Tom also like inscripted, I love cheeseburgers or something. He did something. I'm misquoting in his, But it's just like the fact that I think the Barefoot Mining talk was correct. Like, it is going to be kind of crazy looking back on it that we interacted with kind of like the Bitcoin blockchain and not a layer 2 like Lightning or Arc or something like that. And that kind of ties into Drew's talk a little bit. Like, how did Satoshi think of Bitcoin? Thinking about it from a marketplace perspective, and that layer 0 is like, I think, the predetermined 21 million supply interacting with the miners, and then layer 1 is facilitating like blocks, and layer 2 being Lightning, and so on and so forth. Like, what other marketplaces are we going to be using to move Bitcoin value around? Like, that is really, really interesting to me. I do think it also ties in a little bit to Trey Seller's talk at BitBlock Boom called Waves, Caves, and HODLmobiles. And in that talk, he displayed the HODL waves, which is a chart of Bitcoin UTXO distribution over time. And you can kind of see by looking at the on-chain data, like on-chain Bitcoin
not Lightning or anything, just on-chain layer 1 data of folks who hold Bitcoin and like when they last moved it. And there's a huge tranche of people that like have held Bitcoin for over 3 years and haven't moved it. And that's like a really healthy thing because people are just holding Bitcoin. Like these whales are accumulating, you and I are accumulating, like we're not moving Bitcoin. We might be moving it to like consolidate UTXOs or do these advanced operations. But like one of the questions in the Q&A to Trey's talk was, as the Lightning Network becomes more popular and grows, or other layer 2s become popular and grow, and as the base chain becomes more expensive to interact with, how do you see this chart changing? And so I actually think it'd be a really cool visualization underneath the HODL waves to show Lightning Network capacity. Because you could imagine how the two charts would look. As Lightning Network capacity grows, the HODL waves become like kind of more stagnant, right? And like you don't like the colored bands for daily activity, weekly activity just cease to exist as the Lightning Network grows, because we're doing day-to-day transactions, fantasy football dues, like prediction bets and stuff like that just over Lightning. And that's already happening within our circle of friends, but like as hyper normalization of Bitcoin happens, hopefully that happens everywhere as well. And so, yeah, I do think it's like, yeah, that talk, I should go back and listen to that Barefoot Mining talk because it's really interesting. Like, it's a privilege. It's an extreme privilege to be in a competitive marketplace for block space right now. Yeah. Like, that's crazy.
He also did forewarn like a fearful outcome of financial institutions trying to, like, to go back to his statement of block time wars. I believe it was, okay, well, if the block subsidy is irrelevant because we've mined the majority of Bitcoin in the future, will financial institutions try to hard fork the code to, you know, speed up the rate at which blocks would be mined? And how, like, I'm still trying to wrap my head on how that's like a threat to Bitcoin, maybe because miners would then just become the new conglomerates of the future, and that would be like unfair to society. And so he brought that up, and he was like, I'm not trying to put, like, he wasn't trying to put fear into the hearts of the people at BitBlock Boom, but he did bring it up, and he was like, we're not ready for this, and this is why we need to focus on layer 2 applications. They're very important. I was like, wow, okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, by the time that's a like realistic concern though, like the Lightning Network will have to kind of CJ Wilson's point, we need to like do things, right? We need to play an active effort in using Lightning, or making it better, supporting Lightning at Unchained as a business, right? Helping traditional banking infrastructure use Lightning, Zapright, helping businesses earn their fees or, you know, income in Lightning payments, and aggregate it on chain later, and all this stuff. The infrastructure is being built out, but I understand the point where it's like, okay, block subsidy, being the largest part right now of the block reward, is fees being the other component. Like, as that dwindles, either fees need to make up for it, or we need to, it's going to be really, really interesting. But I don't see that as like a pragmatic, immediate concern.
I don't either. I think it would be like farther.
But it's a good point. It's good to call out now, so everybody's aware of it, and kind of this constant reminder, like, hey, use the Lightning Network when you can. Like, you don't. One, it's way cheaper. 2, it's instant. So like there's benefits to it. Like, use it. It's not just something cool that you can like a tweet every now and then when a Lightning wallet that you don't use comes out with a new feature release, but you want to socially signal to everybody who you follow that like you're up to date with Lightning stuff. Like, actually friggin' use it. That was a big pill for me to like swallow. Was like, okay, can't just talk about it. I got to be about it. I got to like use Lightning. So maybe for fantasy football next year, we should use Lightning.
And it's been, I haven't dived too far into Lightning. I mean, so the normalization of Lightning, is already in process in my view through Zaps on Nostr and like making it easy. So for me, I just downloaded the wallet of Satoshi, sent a few sats there, used that wallet for, just to enter into the Damus application, right? And when you think of Nostr and you understand Nostr and the Lightning Network, it might seem like overly technical, but there are tools built for you to like use applications to literally just download, and you can use that. It's for someone that has no you know, no technical skills. So
custodial lightning is going to be around and it's going to be a thing.
Yeah.
Like self-custody lightning, I don't know. Not a lightning expert. That's where Tom would definitely have a little bit more to say on that front. But I do see its practical application. I use Phoenix Wallet, which, you know, is a great lightning wallet.
Yeah, I've heard of that one, yeah.
I was in Bitcoin Park in June. I gave a workshop there. And then
cool.
After that, just at Bitcoin Park hanging out, and there's like beers or waters or whatever, sparkling waters you can get up at the front, and you just pay a little BTC Pay server terminal with Lightning. I like spent more Bitcoin than I've ever spent in like a 2-day period, just like paying for $2 waters and Lightning because it was cool and I was thirsty.
Yeah.
But like make that the norm, right? Like, you know.
Yeah. We have a little bit more time left, and I want to be mindful of your time. But I think something that comes to mind, aside from the indie hacking and building your own business, and aside from, you know, your being a Renaissance man in the Bitcoin industry, what other, so let's say normalization of Bitcoin was here, and you still had 50 years to live in this human vessel. What is something that really just like genuinely fascinates you that you could just dedicate your time? So almost like a, you know, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Drew, but if the money was already fixed, Drew would be a physicist. Right.
Yeah.
So like, what would you do? What is something that just like you're so fascinated by? And I mean that this could tie back into indie hacking and like the business that you're building, but maybe even like something else that comes to mind.
That's an excellent question. I think the answer now, before there are children in my life, is going to be different than hopefully in the future if I do have children,
that's
right?
Very
Because
true.
you know, that's like the psychological shift of wanting to provide for somebody who's, you know, coming after you and stuff like that. So my answer, subject to change, of course, but I kind of have this like dream vision of the money is fixed. We've served our tour of duty on Bitcoin working at Unchained. A mini tour of duty, very, very small and insignificant in the grand scheme of things, but it's important to me and important to us.
Yep.
Unchained is successful. Bitcoin's successful. Maybe the side project or business is successful. I do think that working with my hands and sounds really kind of like maybe even too cliche now, but would really find it kind of homesteading to be interesting. I would like to move out somewhere more rural. You know, I'm originally from Wisconsin, and I like, you know, you drive from Wisconsin up to Minneapolis, and along the way you just see like literally like picturesque red wood barns with like a bunch of rolling hills, and it just looks beautiful, like Pixar Toy Story clouds in the background. You're like on a sunny day on a farm. Like that'd be cool. Not a commercial farm, but like have a couple like cows, a chicken coop, like a beautiful garden, provide for yourself, build things with your own hands, you know, like kind of get off the grid, out of cities, into like, you know, just kind of become more connected with your community locally, the people around you, and like really instill those sorts of values to my kids. Yeah. That's what I would want to do right now. Yeah. That's what I'm kind of thinking.
I love that answer. That's a great answer. Cause like I was coming from a point of like, what would you want to study consciousness more, or physics, or or space? And you brought it down to the local, like just being more connected to nature.
Yeah. I want to like grow my own jalapenos to put in my own tacos. That'd be sick. If I could like make my own flour tortillas from grinding up the flour with my own jalapenos and my own tomatoes from my garden, and make that for dinner for my like 2-year-old kid and my wife, that would be killer one day. And I'd be like, yes.
We do need that too. And I was speaking to Harry from the Meat Mafia, and also another friend of mine who was here at Squatch. He's into regen agriculture, and saying like, yeah, we've lost like the hyper localization of being self-sustainable, and maybe that's due to the centralization of cities and money and
I think like it could be like so here's kind of the interesting thing too, like this whole idea with homesteading and like providing for yourself more. we can almost seek to do it in a very futuristic way. Like it would be really cool for me, because I actually think that indie hacking and building a business but learning to program, it's kind of like architecture in a way. Like I want to build a grand cathedral. It's just only that my cathedral is going to be digital probably and built with code instead of concrete.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So it'd be like, how cool would it be to, you know, go in the morning, like on a Wednesday, my ideal Wednesday would be I wake up, I, you know, go check the apple trees in my orchard.
Yeah.
Right. Throw some grain at my chicken, come inside and like connect to gigabit internet and start programming in JavaScript. Yeah. That's sick. That is so fucking
That's awesome.
cool.
Yeah.
When like it is like this like futuristic, you know, like that's what I think is crazy.
I know, and I agree.
My money is cryptographically secured with a globally distributed protocol. I program and build my cathedral and my life's work digitally built with code, but I like provide for my family and I'm connected to my community and the earth. Like, dude, that.
And you could truly be off grid as well, because you could use like the concept of Starlink, right?
Use Starlink to program and code and, you know, be like futuristic, but then like, you know, I want to be typing JavaScript while I still have like dirt on my hands.
That's a great way to end it.
Yeah.
That's a great way to end it. Thank you so much for coming on.
This is great.
Such a pleasure to have you on, and I hope to do this with more Unchained members and Bitcoiners and just keep the podcast going. But if you want to shout out where people can find you, just to you know, see what you're doing, and wherever you'd like to begin with that.
Yeah. Dude, thanks for having me on. This is crazy. Went everywhere with it. So if somebody listened to this whole thing end to end, like, dude, bravo. We talked about a lot of weird shit.
Yes.
But these sorts of talks are really inspiring. They're cool for me because I get to talk about this indie hacker stuff and these like things that I don't really talk about normally, even with coworkers or friends. So thank you. What you're doing here is cool. I'm excited to see you grow the brand. Start getting back what you've put into this. I think that's really important for you. I think this could be something you earn revenue with over time. Just like combining it with a newsletter, all this other stuff.
Yeah.
I do see it being pretty cool.
Thank you.
My best way to like, you know, just keep in touch with what I'm doing and what I'm working on and stuff would just be my Twitter account right now. At clockwork_prior. Meaning behind that is you should be adjusting your priors like clockwork when you're presented with new information. So if at first you hear about Bitcoin and it sounds like a Mario coin, maybe take some time to learn about it and adjust your priors on how you think about that stuff. And it goes with really anything.
Yeah.
So at clockwork_prior on Twitter. My GitHub username is Typer Campbell. Sorry. My grandfather likes it when the P is silent.
Yeah.
Typer Campbell instead of Tyler Campbell.
Okay.
On GitHub. And otherwise I'm just hacking away personal projects and trying to build institutions within Unchained.
Heck yeah. Well, thank you so much again. And I think that concludes it. Peace out, guys.
Peace out.